Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Mike Howerton here with Area 51, and this is another video in our how-to and driver development series. And this is part two of our series on how to set up force feedback correctly in iRacing, how to get the proper force feedback settings for your wheel. And we got halfway through the video last time, and well, let's just say a little more than halfway, but there was still a couple of things we need to talk about. But I was hitting the 22-minute mark and I didn't want to go too long. So I figured it'd be a great idea to do a two-parter on it and swing back around and pick up the last couple settings. So we're going to start the video off today in iRacing. You'll need to go up in the upper left-hand area up there upper right-hand area. The upper right hand area of your screen. Actually, we'll just go there right now and show you. We'll go up here to the upper right hand area where the options are, and we'll click on options. And then this brings up the options screen, and this is the main options screen where it says drive. On the bottom here we have multiple tabs. We're going to be on the drive tab, which is where it default opens up to. In the last video in part one, we talked about enabling force feedback using linear mode, the reduced force feedback on part, your force feedback strength, and your wheel force. We went over all those. We'll still be staying right here in this middle section on the left-hand side where your force feedback settings are. And today we're going to talk about the last two settings we didn't get to in the last video, and that is dampening and minimum force. Let's go ahead. These are the actual values that I use for my wheel. Already been set, and that's 0% dampening and 0 minimum force. Let's go right here and start with dampening. Let's read what the notes down at the bottom have to say here about the dampening effect. It says, apply a friction dampening effect to the wheel that adds a sense of weight. This has the most benefit on gear-driven wheels. And let's just stop there. Gear-driven wheels, some of the most popular ones of the gear-driven are the G series, the G27, or G25, G27, G29, G920, G923, the whole G series from Logitech. Those are all gear-driven. It also says here belt-driven wheels already have plenty of friction. And DD wheels, DD stands for direct drive. So direct drive wheels usually have an internal friction effect already enabled, and that's usually enabled or disabled within the wheel's drivers or control panel settings or whatever software comes with the wheel. With Fanatic, it has the Fanatic control panel, and it also has the Fanalabs software as well. I have both installed on my computer. You have to have the control panel, that's your driver settings, and then an additional download is the Fanalabs software that runs in the background while you're racing that allows you to change a lot of these effects and different things in the wheel. So today we're going to look at the options in iRacing, and then we're also going to look at the driver's Fanalabs software, and I can kind of show you where you can control dampening through there if you don't want to control it in game, and that's what I would recommend. If you have a wheel that allows you to control the dampening effects through software or through firmware on the wheel, I would do it there and not in the game. So in that case, you would set it to 0, and then if you wanted any kind of dampening effect, you would do it in the drivers or in this case Fanalabs or Fanatic control panel. And let's just go ahead and take a look at that real quick. So I prefer 0, and I would recommend close to 0 as you can get. You get in the car, turn some laps. Maybe if you want to do it in iRacing because it's easy and it's real quick, if you don't have it already enabled in your software for your wheel, hop in the car, turn some laps at 0, turn some laps at say 5%, and see if 5% is too much. If it feels like too much, then maybe go to 2 or 3% if 0 is not enough. But basically, I would just go out and turn some laps. It goes in whole percentages. As you can see, it goes, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 100%. But I would recommend staying in the 0 to 5% range if you're going to change it. And said, turn some laps, see how it feels, make some minor adjustments. But again, I like 0. And then also, if you have software, that controls it. If it's already set in software at 5%, you don't want to add another 5% in iRacing. So let's hop over into the Fanalab software, and I'll show you where those dampening effects are in the Fanatic software if you have a Fanatic wheel. All right, we're in Fanalab software. I have Fanalab version 1.60.6, and if you look right here, in this section of all this is all this firmware settings that's built into the wheel. And if you look right here in the dampening section, I have all three of them turned off. And this allows you finer control than just simply one slider in iRacing. So if you have a Fanatic wheel, any of them, they all use Fanalabs, whether it's a CSL, Elite, Club Sport, DD1, DD2, or even one of the brand new CSL DDs. They all have this software, and you can all get better. You can get better fine-tuned dampening effects if you want them in the Fanatic software. So in that case, with the Fanatic wheels, I would go to 0 in iRacing, and I would make the adjustments here in Fanalabs. And so let's kind of look here. Natural damping effects. It gives a description here of what that does. It's just your overall general natural dampening. And then there's natural friction. You can add some friction, and natural inertia. And you can slide these up and down, however you feel comfortable in the wheel. But again, I have them all off because I just don't like dampening. I just think that if a car in iRacing wants the wheel to feel heavy, when you get in the car and you apply the force feedback, it will feel heavy. If you are in a car where the wheel is supposed to be light and feel light and move easily, when you get in the car and you do the auto adjustment of force feedback like we showed in the last video, it's going to be lighter. The dirt cars have a real heavy feel in the wheel. All the dirt stuff, the late models, the sprint cars, they all have a super heavy feel in the wheel. Some of the road courses have lighter. Some of the road course cars have heavier feels. The Mazda Cup car, the MX-5, it has a very heavy feel in the wheel if you set up the force feedback properly. There is zero need for any dampening in the MX-5. It just depends on the car. So really, I turn it all off because I want the wheel itself to move freely, and then let the force feedback handle if there's any kind of heaviness in the wheel. So that is the Fanalab software. Those are the three settings right here for my wheel that control the dampening, and you can do that outside of iRacing. So again, iRacing, if you have a wheel that does not have dampening effect in it, then by all means, if you want to add some heaviness to the wheel, do it in iRacing, turn some laps, see what feels best for you. If you have a wheel that has the dampening effects more defined and maybe even separated out to where there's more fine control over it, and you want some dampening, I would still, again, turn it to 0 in iRacing and then control it within the firmware. And again, personally, I prefer no dampening at all, either in the firmware or in iRacing. So now let's hop back over into iRacing, and we'll move on to the last setting for force feedback that we're going to talk about in our series, and that is minimum force. So let's hop back over into iRacing, and we'll do that now. Okay, we're back in iRacing here, and we're going to talk about the very last setting here in the force feedback section. And it's the last setting, the last thing we're going to discuss, last topic in our iRacing, how to set up your force feedback properly or correctly video series. This is part 2. This is the last topic, minimum force. Let's look here and get down and read the note about what it says about this minimum force setting. It says some wheels don't react to small forces, causing a loss in detail at the bottom of the range. This option boosts all our forces up above whatever minimum threshold you set to help ensure small forces can be felt. The separate wheel check utility can be used to find the optimal minimum setting. So this whole idea of the boosting up these small forces to make sure that your wheel will output them to you. This is my real setting. It is set to 0. My wheel can do it can handle any force, even the very, very smallest one possible that iRacing can put out. It will deliver to my wheel. But the problem is when you get into some of the lower end wheels, and even clear up into the upper lower end, or the I would say the beginning of the mid-range. We're talking your Logitech G series, so you talk G25, G27, G29, G920, G923. And we got the Thrustmaster side. Thrustmaster T150 and TMX. Those are your entry level. And then I'm actually also going to include pretty much all the Thrustmaster lineup, especially the ones for console, like the T300, and which is the PlayStation wheel, and the TX, the Thrustmaster TX, which is the Xbox version, especially those that are meant for console. And then you got what Thrustmaster would consider their high end, but I really don't think Thrustmaster's high end is any better than the entry level CSL Elite wheelbase V1.1 from Fanatic. So you got like your TC or PC TC Racer. And a couple of the other ones at the upper end of Thrustmaster. But again, the upper end of Thrustmaster is barely as good as the entry level at Fanatic. And so all those wheels, say pretty much all the Thrustmasters and Logitech wheels at this point, at the time of making this video, they're all going to have some kind of value you're going to have to put in here to this minimum force, whether it's simply 0.2%, 0.4%, 1%, 2%, whatever it is that you're going to have to put in, they're going to have some kind of value here. And so the next thing is, well, how do we find that value, and why are we putting a value in there? It's really exactly as the note says at the bottom. There may be some things that iRacing pushes out in its force feedback, very, very small forces that iRacing wants you to feel, and the motor of those wheels just are not sensitive enough to output that small of a force. There's just the motors, they're cheaper motors. They're in the entry level wheels. They work fine. So I'm not saying these wheels don't work. I'm just saying the motors aren't as sensitive as the high end wheels. And so in order for iRacing to let you feel that force that it wants you to feel, it's going to have to increase it just a little bit to put it above the minimum threshold of a force that wheel can actually output. So we got to find it for your wheel, and that's where this wheel check utility comes in that it mentions. I'm not sure if iRacing wrote this utility or somebody in the community wrote it. I think you can find it in the forums to download, or in some of the help articles. I think it's in the forums actually, in a post where I found it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that work away from you of finding this utility. I mean, it takes a while to search and try to find this thing. It's kind of hard to find, and a lot of people get frustrated trying to find it. So I'm going to provide a direct link down in the description below, where all you have to do is just simply click on that link, and it's going to start to download in your browser. You don't even have to go to the page where the link's found. It's just going to be a direct download link to the utility. When you get it on your computer, it's going to be in a zip file. You can either extract the zip file, and the only thing in it is just this wheelcheck.exe. It's just a wheelcheck executable file, or you can just double click on the wheelcheck utility and just run the executable from inside of the wheelcheck utility, or inside the zip file. So either way, if you're using something like WinZip or WinRare, you can probably still do that, but it's going to open up WinZip or WinRare, and then you have to double click on it and run it from there. But if you're just using the simple Windows compression or Windows zip folder that's built into Windows, you can just simply open it up like you would any other folder, and you can run it from inside the zip folder. So let's go ahead and do that. And it's not an installation, so you're not installing anything. You don't have to worry about bloatware, malware, getting installed to your computer. It doesn't install a thing. It's a self-contained executable file that you just simply run every time, and it opens up. So let's hop over there to the wheel check tool, and we'll finish finding out how to figure out the minimum force value, which will finish up the video in this series on how to set up force feedback for your wheel. So let's hop over into the wheel check tool now. All right. This is what the iRacing wheel check tool looks like. The actual title bar says iRacing Force Feedback Test 1.82, but it is what is called it's what iRacing calls their wheel check tool, even though the title bar says something different. You should be able to find your wheelbase here in this drop down. Fanatic wheels usually for some reason have 2 entries, but it's the same wheel. It doesn't matter which one you pick. And to do this, there's a lot of things here. We're not going to worry about any of it hardly at all. Really, all we're going to do is we're going to select this drop down box, and you'll see down here about halfway down the drop down box, you'll see min force. That is the tool that simply calculates the minimum force value for your wheel. That's all it does. It doesn't do anything else. And then it's going to output the result at the very bottom line on the left-hand side. So let's click it, and it'll start calculating. You'll see some sleep stuff here, different values changing. And there you go. Now it's done. It says your maximum force for steering FFB base offset is 0.0%. So my wheelbase comes in at 0.0. Sometimes, depending on the wheelbase you have, I know for the Logitechs and stuff that it doesn't always read the same every single time. So you would want to run this several times, maybe 4, 5, 6 times. Let's go ahead and run it like 2 or 3 more times, see if we get a different value. I don't really think so. Every once in a while, you'll get some kind of odd, weird value that's like negative number, like negative 0.5% or something like that. Just kind of throw those out. I don't know why it would ever throw a negative value, but we're going to run this several times. There, it came up as 0 again, and we're going to run another test. And this is just iRacing sending some very, very weak forces to the wheel just to see if it responds. And again, it comes up as 0 being my minimum force. And we'll run it again. It's still 0. I can't get it to throw one of those negative numbers when I want it to. That's okay. So basically you run this several times, and I would write down the results each time from this bottom line down here. Write it down. Some people will say to average the results. So if you get like 1.0 one time, 0.8 the next time, 1.5, 2%, some people say, add them all together and then divide by the total times you ran it and get an average. But I would say there's a little bit of fault in that, because basically what it's saying is the minimum force value that it's finding is not consistent with your wheel. And so if it were me, I would take the highest number. So if you get like 1.1, 1.4, 1.8, 2.0, and then you go, okay, it's got this range of several numbers here. I would simply take the 2.0, which is the highest value, and then go back into iRacing and plug that in. That way you make sure you're never missing any forces at all that iRacing's trying to put out to you. So we'll just do this one more time just before we leave to see if we can get one of those funky negative numbers I wanted to show you. Nope, can't get it, but I've seen it before. I've even seen them with my wheelbase before. It's kind of a fluke, but ignore those. And so there you go. So 0% is my minimum force, and just run this utility 4 or 5 times, take the highest value, and that's what you plug into iRacing. So let's hop back over to iRacing to finish out the video. So if you wrote down the values you got after several tests with the wheel check utility for the minimum force, like I said, find the highest one and come over here and just plug it in. Just drag this over. If your highest one was 1.6, there you go, 1.6. I really haven't seen too many wheels that go above 2%. So, especially your Logitech series probably be around this range, this 2% range. But once you've written it down, you come back over to iRacing, you plug it in here, and that will set your minimum force. And that way, no matter how small the force is, iRacing will boost it up just enough to make sure your wheel is going to output it to you. So guys, that wraps up our 2-part series on how to properly set up your force feedback within iRacing. And we've covered everything in this section now, and I hope that you all have enjoyed this video. I hope this helps you, and I hope this helps you to understand all these settings here for force feedback in iRacing, what they do, what they mean, and I hope that you're getting a lot better feeling out of your wheel now, especially if this wasn't correct and you had all this messed up and you were just kind of guessing at what should go there and kind of struggling along. That I hope that now you've got a lot clearer, a lot better force feedback in your wheel, and hope it results in some better lap times for you and an overall better experience in iRacing. If you enjoyed this video in our content here at Area 51 Alien Factory, please like the video and hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get some subscription growth of our channel here. Our goal is to reach 100 subscribers, and I'm sure maybe a year from now we'll look back and laugh at this comment. Maybe we'll hope we'll have a ton more subscribers than that. But as of right now, we're trying to hit that 100 subscriber mark to be able to get us a custom URL from YouTube so that people can link directly to our YouTube channel, be easy to remember. And we're trying to get that set up with YouTube. We got to hit 100 subscribers before they'll let us do that. So appreciate if you guys would get down and subscribe to the channel. And also, by subscribing to the channel, you'll be alerted and you'll know when we post up new content. If you enjoy our content, we're going to be doing a lot more of these how-to and driver development videos, trying to help everybody out that's starting out in iRacing, to help you figure this out. iRacing is a pretty large sim, but it has a very active community, and you'll find a lot of people trying to help each other in the community, and we're just trying to do our part here at Area 51. Again, this is Mike Howerton. Appreciate you sticking around for the video, and we'll see you in the next one.